It's important to understand the different types of mediumship as we are looking to deepen our understanding of it. And with having a better understanding of it, we are able to understand the mechanics of it and how it transpires to a greater degree, thereby giving us a better sense of confidence around it. So mediumship has, as I was saying, different forms. Mediumship itself can be defined by a spiritualist term, that of which the human instrument that is known as a medium, or sometimes it's called a channel, is used by one or more discarnate spirit personalities for the purpose of giving information that is being able to be validated, or in other forms of mediumship, causes paranormal activities to occur. And this would be referring to physical mediumship. Now, when I speak of spirit discarnates, I am referring to that which is no longer incarnated, of course, into a physical body. So mediumship is the communication between the discarnate spirit and the incarnate spirit. Just to sort of bring that to better illustration. And from this definition, we would understand that mediumship is a cooperative effort between the person on the earth plane and the person in spirit, the spirit communicator. So mediumship is the cooperative effort between at least two individuals. And I'm going to refer to them as two individuals as we are talking about two souls. So the earth plane soul and the spirit communicator. So the one in the spirit world. So we have two different souls. And in this particular course, we're talking about melding and blending more. And we're understanding that this is a soul-to-soul blend or a soul-to-soul communication that is occurring. Now, as we're distinguishing the different forms of mediumship, we want to be able to understand exactly what occurs in these different forms. So we have one particular form that has its own particular phenomenon, which occurs through the medium, and one of them would be for solely the purpose of communication. And then we have another form that deals with the manipulation of energies and energy systems. And with that particular form, they will refer to the spirit that is coming through as the spirit operator. With the form of mediumship that we are talking about, we will be referring to them as the spirit communicator or the soul communicator, just to be able to bring a better understanding between the two of them. And I will be placing a document within the classroom just outlining the definitions of some of these terms to give a better and clearer understanding of them. So a spirit that uses a medium for communicating is known as a spirit communicator, and a spirit who uses a medium for the purpose of working with or manipulating energies or energy systems is a spirit operator. So this is where we can differentiate the different types of mediumship, and that is the two basic types of mediumship, and that is mental mediumship and physical mediumship. So mental mediumship is what we are working with now. And mental mediumship is the communication of information through mental telepathy. And so because it's mental telepathy, mental mediumship may sometimes also be called telepathic mediumship. The mental telepathy is the relaying of information, and this is thought energy or thought form that is being impressed upon the medium. And it's being impressed upon the medium without using any of the physical senses. So mental mediumship occurs within the consciousness of the medium. And this is why we are learning more about the altered states or the expanded states. So in mental mediumship, the medium is hearing, seeing, or feeling what the spirit communicators are relaying. And it is important for the medium to relay the information with as little personal influence to what is coming through as possible. And so the medium must really work to surrender as much as possible to the information that is flowing through to them, so that they can relay the information as clearly and as authentically as possible, so that it does not touch the consciousness of the medium's mind. So, or touches it as little as possible. Thereby it will be little influence, or as little influence as possible, by allowing that to come through. And to better be able to understand the difference between mental mediumship and physical mediumship, physical mediumship involves manipulating and transforming the physical energy system of the medium, and is causing something to happen upon the earth plane. So these sorts of occurrences may be wrapping on a table, or producing ectoplasm, but there's something that's physically occurring on the earth plane. So with this definition or understanding, physical mediumship is objective in nature, meaning that something can objectively be seen or experienced. It can be seen or heard by those that are present in the room with the medium. Now, mental mediumship is subjective in nature, meaning that there really isn't any proof for it, and the proof lies within the mind of the sitter. And this is important to understand. This is why spiritualism has evolved the way that it has, so that when the medium is receiving information, it is important to state it instead of asking questions, because it's very, very subjective. And it's important to be able to give the proof so that the sitter understands it. Now, even sometimes with the best proof coming through, the best information or evidence that is coming through, sometimes the sitter may still not be able to take it. And it's because, again, it's subjective. And so how open the sitter is, how readily open they are to have that experience or to be able to try to understand how the information is flowing through the medium will really impact as to how well the sitter will be able to receive the information and take it as proof. So, as I was stating already, mental mediumship is that cooperative effort between two minds, the mind of the medium and the mind of the communicating spirit. When the medium's mind links with those in the spirit world, the information comes through in a number of different ways. Now, for the most part, how this information comes through, it's through seeing, through hearing, or through sensing. Once the medium attunes himself to and links to that spirit communicator, the communicator, they proceed to relay the information that they want to relay to the medium, and they do this in whichever way is possible. And how well they communicate, how well that communication goes, is dependent upon the state of mind of the spirit that's trying to come through, and also depends on the sensitivity of the medium. And it's important to understand that our states of mind or emotion will affect or influence how well we communicate with one another. And if you relay this to just here communicating in the physical world, we would understand that sometimes if we're upset or if we're tired or in other various states of emotional reactivity, then we may not communicate as effectively as if we were well rested and if we were in a neutral or a positive state. And it's the same thing with mediumship. So this is why it's important to understand why some souls may be better communicators than others, and why as a medium we may have one particular day that may go very, very well, and another day that may not go as well when we are working with our mediumship. Understanding what your strongest spiritual sense is important. Some mediums will see very, very clearly, but not hear what spirit people are saying very well. Other people may hear the messaging very well, but not be able to see. And some will really not be able to see or hear very well, but are able to really have a good sense for the feelings that are being communicated, and are able to translate these into feelings, into a very meaningful message which is understood by the sitter. And most mediums work with some combination of those three senses, but one is usually predominantly stronger than the others. when we are working to understand clairvoyance with our mediumship, oftentimes the spirit communicator does like to be able to create a visual to be able to be understood as to who is coming through. When we're working to understand how does clairvoyance work, it's important to understand that when the mind of the medium shifts away from the three-dimensional earth plane and attunes to the spirit world, what is being seen is no longer with the physical eyes, even though it may seem like it's with the physical eyes, but they're actually seeing with their inner vision or their spirit vision. So it's important to be able to communicate the image that is being received from the spirit world with as much accuracy and clarity as possible, and to be able to do so without any interpretation. So every detail that is being observed is important to be able to communicate that, and to be able to do so without the influence of the medium's own mind. But it's not always easy, and part of that is because the medium may not be able to hold that image in their clairvoyance for as long as needed to be able to bring through all the details. So it's important to understand that if an image is being presented to that medium, that they must be able to give it, and to be able to give it without any additional details and without omitting any details either. So things that the medium may see clairvoyantly to be able to describe the communicator and to be able to bring that understanding as to who is coming through, we would work to describe any facial expressions, clothing that's worn, any hairstyle, any ethnic or racial characteristics, any of the physical features, and any of the traits that are being shown, which are all part of the evidence that spirit may bring through and impress upon the mind of the medium. And so it should all be observed and described to the best of one's ability. It's important to realize that the spirit world really is a world of thought and thought forms. And for that reason, it actually takes a lot of work for that spirit communicator to be able to impress upon the medium anything that they're wishing to portray. So when they are projecting this image, understand that it is a mental thought that they are projecting upon the mind of the medium, and it takes a lot of energy and a lot of work to be able to project that image towards the medium like that. And so because it's a thought form and the spirit communicator is working to bring through this image so that it may be relayed to the sitters so that they can understand who is coming through, if you can think just objectively how difficult it might be for yourself to provide a detailed physical description of yourself and how you would have to really think and reach to bring forth these details, it's no different for the spirit communicator, because they are no longer their physical body. And for them to be able to give that visual image, it takes a lot of work to be able to reach back into their memory and recall what they looked like while they were here on the earth plane. It takes a lot of concentration. And this is also, I believe, why sometimes spirit, those that have passed more recently, why they've have some difficulty communicating when they've been more recently passed, and it's because they're learning how to communicate with the physical world. So they have to learn, they have to train how to be able to communicate again with the physical world. Also, understand that the way spirit remembers themselves, or the way they wishes to be remembered, is what the medium sees. So it may not be how the sitter may necessarily remember them, because the spirit is remembering themselves the way that they feel they looked. And so sometimes it can feel a little confusing to the sitter. Although, for the most part, spirit will present themselves as they were in their later years on earth, so that the sitter will be able to better recognize who they are. So they will present themselves to as close to the age as possible, although it is said that many spirit communicators, particularly those that have passed when they were older, that a common age that they tend to show themselves at is around the age of 35. And it's felt that this is because this is when they felt and looked their best. Now, by the same token, we would understand that a soul that passed very, very young may present themselves at an older age, and it tends to be roughly about the age that they would be if they had remained here on the physical plane. It's important to understand also, when we're talking about our clairvoyant, where does the medium see when they're experiencing this clairvoyant vision? So some mediums will get pictures within their mind's eye and relate that to the sitter. Now, other mediums may get an image that's located that's a little bit to the left or the right of their head. And it's almost like their mind has shifted away or expanded away from the focus of the brain, and is receiving these messages telepathically at this particular point in space. And it may be because the spirit is standing next to the medium at that point. Well, some mediums also see spirit that's communicating at a distance, oftentimes near the sitter. And oftentimes when spirit is standing near the sitter, they are doing so to be able to show a particular relationship, or the significance of that relationship by how close they are standing to the sitter. When doing platform or gallery, spirit may stand next to the sitter in order to be able to let the medium know who the message is intended for. It's important to remember too that sometimes spirit gets very excited when they're coming through, and they are giving a lot of images or a lot of impressions, and they forget that the medium must actually be able to verbalize all of these incoming thoughts. And these images may flash very, very quickly. And it's important for the medium, if they're finding it difficult to sort of keep up with that flow, that they must instruct the spirit communicator to slow down. And they will, in fact, slow down that transmission of thought. So all clairvoyance actually takes place within the mind and the consciousness of the medium, and it's regardless of where the medium sees the image or the spirit communicator, where it's located. It's an actual link and a telepathic rapport that's occurring within the consciousness of the medium. So clairvoyance is our spiritual vision or our inner vision, even though it may appear that we are sometimes seeing with the physical eyes and that it is external to ourselves. It's still occurring with our spiritual sense. Some mediums may state that they are able to see spirit in the physical form, and they may see them dense or as earthly people, and that may be true, but it can also be misleading unless the spirit manifests themselves physically. So that's the process of physical mediumship. If the spirit has manifested themselves so solidly looking, that would be physical mediumship. So unless spirit manifests themselves physically, even though it may appear completely solid, it's still the inner vision or the clairvoyance that is being used of the medium. So clairaudience is, of course, our inner hearing, and it can be described as hearing what spirit is saying. And clairvoyance and clairaudience often work together in most mediums. Once the link is made with the spirit communicator and the medium is described everything that they're seeing, there's a message that needs to be given. And sometimes this whole message may be seen clairvoyantly, that's projected to the medium's mind, but oftentimes, or more often, there is a verbal message that spirit wishes to be able to give for the sitter. Sometimes the message can be regarding an experience or a situation that's relevant to the sitter and the communicator that's coming through. Oftentimes it can involve guidance or words of comfort. I found that oftentimes it is just an acknowledgement that they are happy and they are doing well. It's one person communicating to another through the channel that's the medium. And so the message may vary with each person that's involved and with each circumstance. How the medium may hear clairaudiently, that can vary. Sometimes the message is heard within the mind, and other times it may sound like it's a small voice that's just speaking outside of the medium's head, just a little bit off to one side of their ear. Now, as spirit, of course, does not have a voice box, there are no organs of speech. And so, although it may sound like words, it's still a thought, it's still energy that's being projected. And just as the medium shifts their minds to the spirit world, the inner ear is stimulated, just in the same way it was with the clairvoyance. The inner ear is stimulated, and it is able to receive this thought energy from spirit. Some mediums may actually hear words telepathically, and they would have a more developed ability in clairaudience. When they have a very fine-tuned ability and they're able to give a lot of evidence, and as such they're able to give names or places or dates of birth and other very interesting details, and this is all received clairaudiently. And this is very effective because it can be given much easier than if it was an image that is being relayed. A lot of mediums don't actually hear the words that are being projected by the Spirit Communicator, but what happens is they receive complete thought forms and they just know what details are being provided to them. So information may not be as detailed with that particular type of clairaudience because specific words are not heard. However, our clairaudience can always be developed to be able to receive more. So how well a medium will receive clairaudiently will depend on a couple of factors, and one is just how well developed they are with their clairaudience. And as I said before, another point to consider is how long that spirit has been in the spirit world. Because the longer that they're in the spirit world, the better communicators that they have become. They're able to be more telepathic, and they're able to communicate better in that way. When a spirit communicates through a medium, what they're communicating, what their wishes, is relayed and transmitted to the mind and the consciousness of the medium. And the mind of the medium then translates this into specific words which spirit wants to be able to say. And it's important to be able to give as an accurate transmission as possible. Some spirits have been known to be able to give great inspirational works through mediums that are dictated. And one great example of this is the medium Alice Bailey, who demonstrated a great ability of her clairaudience. So just like clairvoyance, our clairaudience can manifest in different ways, but it's important to understand that it's always occurring through the consciousness of the medium. So it is this mental telepathy, and it occurs through this expanded consciousness of the medium. And another one of the finest clairaudient mediums that was ever known is Doris Stokes. And if you have not already researched Doris Stokes, she's a very interesting one to look up. Now, our clairsentience is probably one of the least understood forms of our clairs, and it is defined, of course, as simply clear feeling. The medium does not see any images or words, and they are merely feeling or has a sense of what spirit looks like and what spirit wishes to communicate. And it can be a little confusing because the medium may have a difficult time working with this because they are just going on feelings or emotions or sensations. However, there can be a great amount of information that is relayed through the clairsentience. So with our clairsentience, because it is very, very subtle, there's a variety of vibrations that are being received, and not one particular sensory faculty is being stimulated, so nothing is really heard or seen. But it's the heightened sensitivity of the medium that allows to be able to receive these vibrations from the spirit world, and they're able to translate these vibrations into a clear message. And not a lot of people really understand how this works with their mediumship. They have just come to know that it does work, and they have learned to develop this trust in what they are receiving. And oftentimes, if they give something that is not correct, they will in fact sense that it was wrong just as they give it, and they will of course try to get it right. It's important to be able to be true with ourselves and with those in spirit, and so if we get something wrong, we just be able to state, let me do a little bit of work here. I feel that wasn't quite accurate, and let me go back and work with spirit and bring through what they were wanting to portray. So with the clairsentience, when that faculty is activated and that spirit personality is coming through, the medium actually becomes that spirit personality through this heightened sensitivity. And the medium is able to describe what it's like to be that person in spirit. So if you think about it, if you yourself were to attempt to describe yourself to another person, it wouldn't be in images or in words, but you're working to give the feeling of what it's like to be who you are. And this is what's occurring when we're using our clairsentience with mediumship, that the medium is temporarily becoming the person in spirit and is able to describe to the sitter that experience of being that person. And working with our clairaudience can be a great way to be able to provide information. There is that natural tendency to want to see or to want to hear, but what we should be able to understand is that we can be able to relay a lot of information by allowing ourselves to become sensitized to our clairsentience and to become that person in spirit. So throughout our development, there may be shifts that occur, shifts in energy that take place, and shifts in the way that the mediumship manifests. And this is completely normal and natural and should not be any cause for concern. Our mediumistic development is ongoing, and what's occurring is that the spirit people are in fact experimenting with the medium and trying to figure out what the best way to communicate and what the best way to be able to portray this information is. And so understand that how we receive may shift over time, and that's completely normal. This is all about mental mediumship that we have just covered, and understand that it's still, even though we're talking about the clairs, this is still mind linking and working with mind. And our clairs are just a way to be able to give forth the information that can be taken by the sitter, and hopefully be able to demonstrate to the sitter the identity of who's coming through, and most importantly, the survival of their loved one who has passed from the earth plane. As I said, I will be posting a document to give some definitions for the terms that I have used, so that you have that written down to look at. And any questions regarding this, please post with any questions.